right. Welcome, everyone, to the 19th annual Tallgrass Film Festival. My name is Ryan A. Johnson. I'm a staff member here at Tallgrass and an actor and a horror movie nerd. So I just had to be here to talk to our friends here from the film First Date. They're a part of our horror and bloody shorts block. And I'll just let you both, introduce yourselves. I guess I already said what film you're with. So, just tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. I'll go first. I'm Allyson Morgan. I'm the writer and one of the producers on First Date. I'm based in New York. I am also a performer in addition to being a writer and a producer. And this is my second film in back-to-back years at Tallgrass. So I'm so excited to be back.
Yes, we are so excited to have you back. Sitting showed last year and I got to speak with you about it, and it was just such an incredible film and I loved it so much. So it's a blast to have you back.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hey guys, I'm Meredith Alloway. I directed First Date along with Allyson, who wrote the movie. Hello from Los Angeles. I'm New York based, but here apartment swapping, so if some black cats make some appearances, that might happen. I am a huge fan of Tallgrass. I've actually never been to the festival or had something played, but when I found out we got in, I was really, really thrilled. So it's great to be here, and I'm a horror nerd too, so we can talk about this all day. 'Tis the season.
Yes, when you've got black cats around, you're just ready to go.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, I noticed that I guess we'll just jump off here. So I noticed that your last short, it was labeled as horror as well. I haven't seen it yet, but so I mean, what makes you love the genre? What makes you love horror and want to tell horror stories?
I sometimes wonder if I had never snuck into my parents' room to watch Bram Stoker's Dracula at age 5. My life might have been different. But I was raised in, my dad is a huge horror fan. My brother I can see it on my phone is like popping up, texting me because we're doing like an Halloween. My last name is Alloway. And I don't know why, this many years for my brother to be like, Halloween. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cheesy. I love it. But we both, and my cousin too, like just such a huge like movie family. And my cousin had a huge Lost Boys poster like on his, in his room. And I remember being, a kid and being terrified of it. Now it's one of my favorite movies. I mean, it's iconic as but yeah, I think as I've gotten older, I didn't when I started making films, I didn't set out to make a specific type of genre. I more just started writing things and questions I had. And I think in the short form sort of landscape, it really is more about sort of drumming up ideas and questions, or not even scares, but just kind of like moments. And I think that, when you get into longer form horror storytelling, it really is an opportunity to explore some of the darker, more uncomfortable areas of existence in life, but through this sort of sugar-coated seems like a weird thing to say because horror is scary, but I think, horror is also really fun, and I'm a huge psychological thriller fan. And I think it's such a chance to kind of look at some things that otherwise can be really triggering, but through this sort of lens that makes it more digestible and fun. And
Yeah, that's perfectly succinct. I love that. Yeah. It's always such a great avenue to approach, certain topics or things and not feel too heavy-handed. You can have a little bit of fun with it seems like. So that's great. Well, Allyson, you wrote the film and produced it. Is horror or thrillers or things like that, is that something really special to you? I know Sitting was definitely had a dark premise to it, but I don't know, what made you want to tell this story and write this story?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll be the odd one out and say that horror and thriller is not my go-to genre, which is why I needed to bring the brilliant Meredith Alloway on to help me bring this to life. Just for larger context, this piece is part of a series called Bite Size Halloween. that was commissioned by 20th Digital Studios. So I was given an opportunity to pitch ideas to them for what a very micro short kind of horror story would look like. And as somebody who is a real baby with horror, I get really scared. And frequently I find that, you know, horror movies put women in vulnerable positions, make women victimized. It's a lot of traditional scenes of like violence that I'm not drawn to. So when I was thinking about what could I, Allyson, offer this space, I wanted to tell a story where women felt empowered and not victimized, or at least not in the traditional sense. And also my kind of wheelhouse is relationship stories and relationships that are a little off kilter or non-traditional, which is ultimately what Sitting was a little bit about too. So this is kind of my way into this story, is from a place of horror in relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, relationships can be quite scary, right? So, you know, so you said, so that's what I was curious about. So this is part of Hulu's Bite Size Halloween. So this was commissioned. You were able to just go in and pitch ideas. Did you come with like a handful of them and they just picked the one they like the best? I'm just really curious, how does the pitching situation go about? I mean, how do you go about that?
And I can tell you about my experience, and Meredith has also made another short for Huluween as well, so she might have a different answer for this. Yeah, very simply, I had met RB Pedrassian from their team at a TV festival, and we had kind of a general meeting there. I didn't really think anything would come of it, and then I was invited to come in and pitch. They said up to 5 ideas. So I fully prepped 5 pitches, which for me meant writing the scripts because they were only 3 or 4 pages long, and that helped me kind of work out the idea. I brought in some images, some kind of like tonal references, and then I sat in a room. This was February 2020, so right before lockdown and pandemic. Sat in the room with them, and I'll be honest, it was my first time pitching anything, so I don't know if I did it the right way, but First Date was the last idea that I pitched, and I could tell when I pitched it, number one, it was my favorite idea, so I saved it for last, but also everybody in the room just leaned in a little more and asked more questions, and I just had a feeling that that was going to be the one that they responded to of what I brought in. I still didn't know that they wanted to do it until much, much later. I think June, Meredith, maybe we talked about it. And then we shot in September and it was up in October. So it ended up being almost a full year process, but the actual production was very short.
Wow, that's incredible. So Meredith, what was your experience like with Hulu and your Bite Size Halloween?
Yeah, so I had written the short, the one that ended up getting chosen, and I'm kind of telling it from this point of view because it's very difficult to make a short that has a story and is interesting at all in under 5 minutes. You know what I mean? I had written this short called Ride. I think it was called like Ride or Die at the time. We dropped the or die. It was cheesy. But it was like 12 minutes, maybe 10 minutes short. It was like much darker about like a girl who goes to this spin class and sort of transforms into the, what she has been told will be the better version of herself, kind of like a Black Swan type spin class thing. And I was like, I want to make this short, and then I had a friend reach out to me because the year before, Halloween was a little different. So they were only going to choose, like, I think it was like 6 or 7 filmmakers, and they were partnering with Sundance. So it was the same studio. And basically I had a friend be like, do you want to pitch on this similarly? And I was like, ooh, I'm going to sneak in, this version of Ride similarly to Allyson. I think it was at the end too. And so I made a lookbook. I'm like a big person who I like lookbooks and decks. And shared it, and it was like a virtual thing because I was in New York and they were, the same team we worked with on First Date in LA. And similarly, like when I pitched a Ride, and I'd kind of like made it a smaller version, 5-minute version, they had more questions and they leaned in. And I think that's one of the things that's, I hope we go back to some sort of mesh of in-person and virtual, obviously considering safety, because you can really check the temperature when you're in the room of what people are jamming on, and sometimes virtually, but they definitely leaned in a little bit. I heard nothing. I was like, I guess I didn't get chosen. And then like a few months later at the end of the summer, so it was like very quick turnaround. I had a friend at Sundance hit me up and say, hey, they're looking for shorts. And I was like, I already pitched it. He was like, I don't know, just send me some things. So I ended up writing actually a 5-minute version of Ride. I had like a sleep paralysis one and like something else. I remember I had a friend, like a writing buddy, staying with me for a few days. And we just like went to, a hotel lobby. I love writing in lobbies, and just cranked it out. And I was like, I don't know, they already heard this. And sure enough, that's the one they picked. And we went into pre-pro like 2 weeks later. It was like super fast. And it was, it was really cool because there were only like 6 or 7 of us. And a lot of those filmmakers I knew, so it was like, it was cool to be a part of that. And I was really proud to be a part of that. And even this year or last year of Hulu, I think Allyson and I knew some people, and I had some friends that did it this year. So I really think that it's been a cool crop of movies and filmmakers that, it's really hard to get shorts funded. So it's nice to have someone say, here you go, yeah, that was my journey.
That's incredible. Yeah, we have a alum and a friend, Zane Rubin, who had a film in Halloween called Creature, which was a lot of fun. And so what I'm curious about then, because like you said, you don't have money for shorts. There's never money for them because no one seems to want to back them because they're not going to make any money, right? So now all of a sudden you're handed some money to go make this film. How does that play into, are you able to just kind of go wild then and say, okay, we got these lookbooks, we've got the vision, we've got everything, I need crystals and I need books and I need spell books and all that sort of stuff. How did you go about building the look of the film?
I'll defer to Meredith since she really wrangled the look of it, but just to say, we didn't have that much money.
Okay, I shouldn't have said you got money.
Yeah, it was the digital team, so we got just enough money to make it, which should make what Meredith did with it even more impressive. But Meredith, go ahead.
Yeah, we basically hired Lizzie Shapiro, who's an amazing producer. She also happens to be a good friend of mine. I'd wanted to work with her, and it was pandemic, and I was like, you want to make a movie? It was a miracle, and we were kind of like, other than like honestly, Allyson, I feel like we were kind of like the first people back on set because it's owned by Disney. So, you had their sort of support when it came to like COVID compliance. And since making First Date, I know I've had a lot of friends reach out to me to be like, how did you go about the COVID compliance stuff? And it was very, very buttoned up, but we brought on Lizzie, and it's sort of like when you're working at a, like, I'm funding it myself, really scrappy level. It almost feels the same as when you're working for a bigger company, because I think between Allyson and I, we were like, we've got Disney money. We want to pay people a good rate, and when you start looking at it in that way, your resources are tight for the amount of money that we had. So I really was like, this is a great opportunity to bring on people in New York I've wanted to work with and hope to work with on, my features and beyond. And we got an incredible team of people who really allowed us to build the look of the film on a budget. And I really owe it to, Rachel, Dana Best, our costume designer, Ariel Marks, our composer, we had just incredible people, and because of the pandemic, like, people were available. And that being said, when Allyson first sent me the script, I was like, I see Verhoeven, I see De Palma, and which is exciting because the visuals of a lot of those films in the 80s and 90s and kind of the Basic Instinct, body heat kind of aesthetic. There's so many movies in the erotic thriller landscape that are so problematic And I was sort of excited to be like, oh, we have this female driven script, and we can be inspired by the visuals of those movies. And kind of to Allyson's point earlier, like kind of like claim them and bring them into a modern era. I mean, this is kind of a really specific thing, but our DP, Charlotte Hornsby, was another person I had wanted to work with before, and she's just incredible, her repertoire. And the moment I was like, 80s, 90s erotic thriller, I was like, I want, a location with a pool. That was finding a location was a whole other thing, but we couldn't do that. So this is just like to speak to our gaffer Dan and her brilliance. We built like a baby pool with like a light shining on it outside, so that when you're in the house in those shots, it feels like maybe this like mansion that's on the edge of a cliff by the ocean or a pool. And really it's just like a baby pool, and like our PA just like out there manning it. So it was really fun because I think that everyone was so excited to be back on a set and play in this visual landscape, this sort of like pulpy, sexy kind of thing. So we kind of took that inspiration and ran with that.
That is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I was going to ask you about the ripples on the wall. It's such a nice aesthetic touch, and everything. I mean, you can definitely tell just from what you said, just all of those influences that bring in that the really gauzy, kind of dreamy, colorful nature of the whole thing. It was just beautiful. So then what went into the casting? I mean, you've got, for starters, Kara, I was looking up her stuff. She's a Tallgrass alum, which is pretty cool. We screened, I saw she had a credit for Materna, and we screened that just last year. So that's really awesome. She was also in a short called Spot, a period piece that I haven't asked Hannah yet, but a couple of years ago, we had a lot of period short films. And so Hannah had a whole block. She had built a whole block for the festival that was all about short films about periods. And I'm wondering, I meant to ask her if that one was, that was in it. Okay, cool. So there's the answer. So she's an alum as well. So yeah, where'd you find Alex and Billy, and what was that like, guys?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, quickly, kind of generally, and then Meredith can talk specifically because she had worked with Kara before. So we had a casting director, Rory Bergman, who is a friend of mine. Again, the theme is bringing in friends and people we wanted to work with. So she was incredible with putting lists and offers out for us. But we really got our top choices, which was super exciting. It was always important to me that whoever played Alex wasn't just a traditional villain, wasn't just playing one note. I really wanted somebody in that role who also had vulnerability, who could bring in some, tenderness to it. And I think Meredith suggested Hari initially. And when I watched, some of Hari's work, and I just thought she was perfect and incredible. And same with Kara. I was familiar with Kara's work. Meredith and I both have theater backgrounds. Kara has a theater background, and she's worked with so many people that I love for so many years that this was really an awesome opportunity to grab her and bring her in. But I'll let Meredith talk about both of them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to your point, Allyson, we wanted multifaceted actresses who really were going to show us what was on the page. My favorite is like getting to the point where it's like, okay, we feel good about the script. Now let's have these like rehearsals. And, Kara I'd worked with on my very first short film, Interior Teresa, which was like 7 years ago. We were talking the other day, and it was like, I'm never on Facebook, but somehow it alerts me when I have these like memories, and I'm like, 7 years ago today was location scouting for the short, I thought was going to be impossible to make. And I met her through mutual, friends in the theater. And I remember we like went out for like a coffee or something in Harlem and spent the whole night together. Just like we went dancing, we listened to jazz. I was like, you are incredible as a person and an artist. And was really, I've been looking for something to do again with her. And so she, was always kind of in the back of my brain from day one. And then Hari, I just think she's incredible. And I think she has a regalness to her as well as a vulnerability that I think Alex needed to be someone that, was badass and a woman that was in charge. But then the flip comes when she's, as Hari described her in one rehearsal, like a chaotic femme, which I love that. I like, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, she's a chaotic femme who's in love and, grappling with this like romance that she has. And Hari really brought out a lot of the shades, as did Kara, and both of the characters, at, a fun kind of thing that was their idea. Because, we were like, okay, we don't want this to be like Alex is trapping her ex in a vicious cycle and her ex, has nothing to do with it. And Kara was like, we have, this strip where they're being proposed to, and it was actually Alex proposing to Billy. And we all kind of were like, what if Billy proposes to Alex? Because then you go, well, what part of this does she have? If she's the one proposing, where did she go? Why did she leave? What happened? And just small nuances like that I, both actresses are amazing writers and creators in their own right. And when you cast people like that, not only do you get a great performance, but you also make your script and your project better too. So yeah, we were really, really lucky to have them.
Yes, you absolutely were. I think they were both able to tell such a story in such a short amount of time with so little words even. I mean, it was heartbreaking to see, kind of what had happened and how it all fell apart. So you've got this crazy quick turnaround, but you've got a beautiful location. So then was the one location, was that a money thing as well? Did it just work, for you, or both? Both.
Yeah. I mean, also ultimately it was a 4-page script, which we shot right up until the last 5 minutes of our day, so it was tight. But it was also a COVID compliance situation too, where we really could just get in and get out with a very limited group of people. So we knew we had limited time to shoot it, and the location that we found was luckily available for the one night that we had it.
That's incredible. So you did this in one night or one day?
Yeah.
Wow. That's unbelievable. So then any good stories, any mishaps, anything that just about made you not make your day, anything like that, or was it a pretty smooth shoot?
I mean, I think that you look at these movies that we were drawing visual inspiration from, and there was definitely a part in pre-pro, Allyson, you remember this, where Charlotte and I were going over the shot list, and Allyson and Lizzie were like, we either need to not do this visual language and do it completely stripped down, or you guys need to figure it out. And and Charlotte and I were like, the whole point is playing in this landscape. It's a horror movie, and there's always going to be a point in the shot listing where everyone is like, we can't. Every movie I've done, it's like, it's too much. And now that I know, it's like, great, right on time. That's exactly where you should be. I say that because that landscape we were living in, like certain shots, you really like start to respect the people who, I don't want to say invented them, but invented them, because like the split diopter shot, for example, with basically Kara's like got her compact and she sees Hari in the back. That's a hard shot to set up, and it going into it, but that, Kara looking into the like sort of like multi-reflective glass, these things that like really were creating the texture of the movie are hard to do, and they take time to set up, and you have to get them just right. You have to have the lighting just right, the timing. And that was a big lesson for me. And you start to really respect the people who have broken boundaries with visual language storytelling and developing these shots, because they're very hard to do. And I'm really impressed with the team. And, our gaffer, Dan, like built this light the night before. They called it the Peach Fuzz. I had a film I love called The Fourth Man. There's a Paul Verhoeven movie. I had shared with everyone, and he watched it the night before, and that night stayed up, like built the day before the shoot, building this light. to give us this very specific glowy, peachy kind of warmth to the actresses. And I think it really it taught me a lot about when you strive for something visually compelling, that it's going to take time and it's difficult, and keep going, keep pushing for it. I'm glad we didn't give up on it, because there was a point where Charlotte and I were like, forget it, and you just got to press on. So that was the most sort of time consuming ticking clock thing on my end. Allyson, I'm sure you have a different perspective of it, but.
No, although, yeah, my memory of that was at some point, I think you guys were trying to get all of your shots together, and you were like, what if we just shave off an entire page of dialogue so that we can get the visual language in? And I think that's when I was like, or we could just shoot the movie, like whatever. But that's what collaboration is. That's what movie making is. Like you work together to figure it out. And I think in the end, we compromised. I think we did cut some more dialogue that was there. And also we got the most important, most beautiful shots. But to answer your question, Ryan, I don't think there was a moment that we were like, oh, this isn't going to happen. I think the day we were COVID testing everybody, we were all kind of holding our breaths too. We actually had 2 lovely actresses on standby as understudies if we had to do that. And it was our first time, like so many people, this was September of 2020, going back into production. So there were moments where I ate lunch facing a wall because we weren't allowed to hug each other or eat together. And that was also tough when you're doing a 12-hour shoot overnight and you can't, be expressive with each other. But by and large, once we were up and running, the shoot was actually pretty smooth because we had so many people so at the top of their game and so prepped, which I think is the key to everything.
Yeah, the prep will make or break you. I mean, that's it's everything. So then I guess so what's coming up next then? I mean, after, well, I guess before we get to that, what happens when you're done with this thing? Do you just hand it off to Hulu, the company or whatever? I mean, obviously you're able to take it to film festivals and things like that. I mean, do you have to give it away or do you share ownership? How does that work?
Fox owns the film. is the
Yeah.
short answer. But they have been really great partners in supporting us with submitting to festivals and getting it out to a wider audience. I mean, we did have a whole post-production process that we were responsible for, really, Meredith and Lizzie kind of oversaw. So it wasn't just okay, we're done, here's the footage. We definitely took longer. We had a couple weeks, I think, although still a pretty short amount of time to do the post and then give it to them. But yeah, we're playing Tallgrass, which is very exciting. We did Holly shorts. We're doing New Fest in New York. So it's been nice to see that it's had a little bit of a festival life because we all believe in it as a standalone film outside of this series. So we're excited to just show it to a bigger audience. Yeah,
totally. I mean, film festivals, it's like you said, I mean, that's where you meet everyone you want to work with and you make all those connections and it's easy. I'm sure it's easy when you look through the list of 20 or 30 Hulu 5-minute shorts. I'm sure it's easy to kind of get lost in the shuffle there sometimes. So I'm super happy that y'all are able to get it out there. So then you said it was a couple of weeks in post. I mean, is that just furious editing? I mean, what did that look like, Meredith?
Yeah. Well, we worked with an editor, Josh Wilmot, who edits, I think he's edited all but my first film. And he's a filmmaker in his own right. So I believe he was maybe I think he zoomed in to set for a little bit, just so he kind of knew what was going on. He knew the shot list, he knew everything. I really am someone that, I love having as many of my post collaborators on board and even pre-production as possible. I mean, I learned this years ago because I was a journalist for many, many years. I mean, I still am, but I interviewed the composer that worked on Baz Luhrmann's The Get Down, which at the time was the most expensive show ever made on Netflix. And he was like, oh, these shows are so expensive because everyone in post is involved in pre-production. that, and it's just like people are getting paid for the whole time. Now, obviously an indie film, when you can't do that financially, you have to find a balance and respect people's time. But Josh has always been so great about like knowing what's going on, because with something like this, which I believe we delivered an edit in like 4 or 5 days, like maybe 6, like it was like pretty fast. The first cut, it's great. And then you take notes. And I also think that the team over at Fox, we were all very on the same page with what the script was. So there were a few things in the edit that, we kind of had to like spice up a little bit, because at that point you're kind of looking at it for what it is, and you're still getting kind of like the shoot and the shot list out of your mind. And then I kind of love when you get a note. I think they were like, we want something in the middle that's like crazier. And obviously that's not a note that you have to learn to translate that, like a great editor knows how to translate notes. And Josh does very well, and whatever. Anyway, and after that, we had a great sound designer, and our composer, Ariel Marks, really just knocked it out of the park. I was like, I want something, I miss just almost self-aware scores that are just sort of illustrious and over the top, like a lot of those 80s 90s movies, and sensual, and scores are they're so cool these days and minimal, which is great. But I think her first pass, I was like, yes, I was like, but we also had been sharing playlists and songs for like, the 2 weeks leading up to the shoot. So I really think the ferocity of the post schedule was really sort of fueled by the prep, to Allison's point, prep is always key. And I also want to say that I think having this experience on Ride, which was an equally fast turnaround, Josh edited it. We worked with a different sounding, actually different colorist, but it's really liberating, because on my short before that, Deep Tissue, oh my God, we're a never ending post, because you have no money, and you have like really no deadline but your own, and film festival submissions. And even when you get in a festival, then maybe it's 6 months away and you tinker till the very end. I think it's really healthy to go through an experience where it's like, you just have to go on instinct. You just have to trust your gut, do the prep, and then send it away and move on with your life. Like, I think that's also really great too. I don't know how you felt about that, Allyson, but I think it's good to balance and have those things you can obsess over, and then have the things that you just have to let go of.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that, what makes Meredith a great collaborator too is you and I talked so much about the script before even going into production too, that like I was pretty clear on what we were going for and what it was going to look like, so that I, as a writer, wasn't surprised. Sitting played at another festival recently, and I got asked in the Q&A, oh, so like, have you as the writer ever been asked by the director to leave set? And I was like, I don't want to be on a set that operates that way. Like, I think that if the director and the writer aren't on the same page or aren't collaborating, like that just doesn't interest me. So again, like I was pretty clear on what we were making, and I was excited about why we were making it, and that Meredith was the one to lead us there.
Yeah, that's incredible. We have, like I mentioned before, I handle the Take 36 short film race with Tallgrass. And one of the things that I love about that is it's 36 hours and then you got to submit your film. And there's nothing like the feeling of satisfaction when you see that turnaround and you can't overthink things and you just have to go for it. And I think, to speaking to your point, Meredith, and yours, Allyson, that's a skill that that is very worthwhile, to just be able to just go with your gut and your instinct and just roll with it.
Yeah, after we delivered First Date. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, not at all.
But it is a skill. Like Ride making me sort of understand how First Date, and then literally, I think it was like we were 3 days out from delivering First Date, and I got a call. My manager was like, "Do you want to direct this music video for Paris Jackson?" And I think I was like with Lizzie, and I was like, "Do you want to keep on going?" And that turnaround was even more insane. We shot it on a Thursday night because they wanted to release it on Halloween. And we shot it on a Thursday night until the sun came up. I mean, it was like jam-packed, and it looked like my DP, a different DP, but like it looks like a Joe Wright film, which is what I wanted. And he was like, "I hate you." It's like, that's impossible, but pulled it off. And we delivered it on Monday. I mean, it was insane. Granted, like it's a music video, so you're not dealing with the like sound aspect, but we were dealing with VFX, which we didn't have any VFX on first date. And thank God, you know, I had been through that before. I was working at, you know, a way larger budget than I had worked at before, and with a smaller timeline. But so it is kind of like, especially for film directors that want to do music videos or commercials, like you're gonna be working with faster turnaround. So I think it is good practice.
Yeah, I've worked with some folks that did videos and commercials and stuff, and they were, I mean, even though you were shooting a film, it was just like, okay, go, 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 go. Okay, next one, next. And I'm like, can we do that one more time?
Yeah.
So then what's up next? Are you you got something, and you got anything going on? Features or anything like that?
I think I can say that I'm actually writing for State as a Feature for Fox now. So that's kind of the next thing for me. That's an ongoing process. But yeah, hopefully for State the Feature coming soon.
Very
or at least
cool.
The script version.
Yeah.
I've seen
well, that's very exciting.
It's great. It's gonna be great. And I think Allyson from the beginning with this short always kind of wanted to tell a longer form story, because what they're doing, I mean, already a cycle, you know, has kind of got a longevity to it. Just the physics of what the plot is, but also just these characters, you know. So I'm excited to read it. And me, yeah. It's always so weird when you're asked this question, because you're like, what do I want to say? And like, how in detail do I want to go? I have a feature called High Priestess that I have some amazing producers I'm working with. We have like 2 casts that are attached that are just, I'm just baffled. You know, it's just still, I never want to lose the wide-eyed wonder of having someone believe in your project. I'm just like, don't lose that. That's what keeps you excited. So I have that. We have an offer out to one other person, and you know, you kind of go through the thing of the package, and then you take it out and you're like, give me money. And it's just really been a joy to work with incredible producers who have like relationships in the business. And you know, when you're from indie film, it's always you asking that. So it's nice to have producers that are supporting you on that. So I have that, you know, send the good vibes. Hopefully we shoot it next year. Hopefully. I just finished a script for Sony over the summer that finally heard back on, you know, thoughts literally on Friday in the airport, on my way to LA. So that's good. Yeah, and have a few other, you know, I think it's the pitching thing. You know, pitching is such a skill, because no matter where you're at, you know, interviewing filmmakers for 10 years, if you're Ryan Coogler, if you're Barry Jenkins, you're Claire Denis, you're always going to have to be pitching your projects to someone. It could be, you know, and I think that, you know, it's hard because it's a lot of time and effort. Like, you're asked what's coming up. I'm like, well, I have like 2 meetings this week to pitch, to rewrite scripts. You know, it's like, it is sort of never ending, but I think it keeps you inspired, you know, especially when you're like waiting to get a movie off the ground, continuing to write something else, or like pivoting, you know, to do something else. I'm working on an audio podcast that I have a shoot tomorrow. It's just like, I always try to stay inspired, you know, cause it's irons in the fire, I guess. It's always good to have irons in the fire.
Yeah, because it seems like you never know what's gonna make it, you know. It's cutthroat out there, and it seems like so that's amazing. It's so cool to hear all of those irons in the fire. I'm really excited to see what you've got coming up next. I made the mistake last year of doing all these COVID Q&As and everything, and it'd be like, so what's next? And then I go, don't ask that question, because everyone's like, I don't know, dude, I'm gonna sit in my apartment for a while and write. Like, what?
I think even in the best of times, we still don't know, you know, even as things begin to open back up. I think it's going to be a while before the industry figures out kind of what's next, and what audiences are interested in, and what is feasible financially, and as we continue with COVID safety and all of that. So even though we're not as much in lockdown anymore, you know, that's just the nature of arts and entertainment, and film and everything else too, is it's always a big question mark. And you have to just learn to live with patience, which is something that I'm terrible at. But, you know, if this last year and a half has taught me anything, it's to just take it easy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sorry. I was wondering, do you find, as you know, everything is changing and the world is just, you know, everything's up in the air, it seems like every day. I mean, are you noticing people looking for different stories? You know, are you noticing people are wanting more of this, more of that? Because I'm just curious, you see, I'm always curious with horror. It seems to really reflect the sign of the times and things like that. And there's a lot of movies that can really speak to what's happening in the world in that year, that moment. And I'm curious to see what COVID and quarantine and pandemic and all of these things and how they influence the stories that you're pitching, or that these people that you're pitching to are looking for. Do you notice any trends, anything where they're like, we want more gore because people want to see something nasty or something like that?
I think it's more, I mean, it's more about the people who are telling the stories right now than I think the stories, which is in turn the stories. You know, it's kind of like a chicken or egg thing. I think that with like Me Too and with the BLM movement, and I think that now what people want and what people greenlit are two different things. And I hope that, you know, those come together. But, you know, I'm hoping, and I kind of see, and I'm hoping, let's just say, because I'm like, you know, marginalized voices in horror are what people are looking for. And I do think that that's true. Even just seeing like, you know, some friends I've known and come up with get their things greenlit or get programmed. I really hope that that continues onward, you know, on like a massive studio level. I mean, even like Nia DaCosta having Candyman come out and do well does so much for people. I think it's more like we're realizing the blind spots that we've had, and especially in horror. It's like we know, but then it becomes very clear when you see something like Candyman, in the same way that when Get Out came out, it just changed everything. Because we're like, oh my God, these stories and these people on screen have not been in studio horror movies. It's just staggering, you know? And to our point earlier, all of the problematic things that have existed in the horror thriller landscape that I'm really hoping, and I'm seeing, but we need more of it. I'm just reminded of how much work we have to do, that we put different people in the writer's chair, in the director's chair, behind the camera. And then that is actually what leads us to get different stuff. And that people will look back on this time and see that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great answer. I love it. Well, you definitely, you know, made a beautiful film. It's diverse. It deals with, you know, I just think it's everything we need right now, as far as, you know, like you said, you know, just representation in film and things like that. And so then is there anywhere, I guess we could probably wrap it up, but is there anywhere people can follow along on your journey as you make more things? Anything you want to plug, Instagram, stuff like that?
My website is allysonm.com. It's ALLYSONM.com. And my social media and all that stuff is there. I also, because I'm in New York, am doing a play in a week and a half, October 27th through the 31st. So if you're on the East Coast, you can come see, I have a theater company here called F It Club, or Fuck It Club, in the spirit of why are we waiting for people to give us work? Fuck it, let's make our own work. And this is our 10th year and final production with the company that has been delayed since May 2020. So it's 10 world premiere short plays around the theme of happily ever after. So if you're in the mood for some theater, come on out. I'm acting in 2 of the plays, and then I wrote a short play as well.
Incredible.
Yeah, I guess like I'm just on Instagram. I'm really bad about updating my website, but yeah, it just my name on Instagram. It's like ATWW Alloway, which was like an old journalism thing. But yeah, I mean that's where I sort of update with stuff. Hopefully there are updates coming soon. It is sort of interesting when you're at the phase you're like, oh my God, like I have nothing coming out and everything is just at earlier stages of like the birth. So yeah, I mean that's where I share stuff, and we have Halloween. We'll be sharing all of our weird horror movies. My brother and I are such nerds, but that'll be up there. And I think it's such a fun time of year to watch like deep cut horror and thrillers, and I'm always looking for stuff I haven't seen. So yeah.
So then will you give me a recommendation of a deep cut horror film that I should watch? And I'll give you one. It's probably not very deep.
This is what came to mind immediately because they're doing a retrospective of it at Metrograph and I'm missing it, is Trouble Every Day, which is Claire Denis' Cannibal Lover movie. That's amazing and bizarre, and Vincent Gallo is in it, and it's awesome. That's what came to mind because I'm so sad that I'm missing the restoration. I think it's at Metrograph. Don't quote me on that. It's like at one of the theaters, but anyway, that's a good one. Okay. Let me
You
have
said
it.
trouble. You said Trouble Every Day.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna write that down. Man, see, now I want to do something way cooler. In the spirit of indie filmmaking and all of these things that we're talking about, one of my favorite things that I've seen over the last few years is a movie called One Cut of the Dead. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on Shudder.
It's so good.
It is so good. Allyson, it's a little bloody. It's got some zombies and stuff.
I don't know, guys. I don't want to have nightmares.
I'm going to set this up without telling you too much. For any filmmaker, anyone that enjoys the act of making film and all that sort of stuff, it is just a breath of fresh air. If you do start watching it, stick with it. It's going to seem a little weird about halfway through. The ball drops and everything changes, and it's just so much fun, and it's a true love letter to filmmaking. It's awesome.
I need to rewatch that. Great reminder.
Well, yes, I need to rewatch it too. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with us. This has been really, really cool. I look forward to seeing what you do next. And thank you all for joining us for the 19th annual Tallgrass Film Festival and supporting Tallgrass. We love you all and we appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. This is a blast. Thank you so much.